The hardcores are here, ready to learn. We may be few, but we are mighty. I see people that I know have been working in this for quite a while, and some that have just begun their journey this year. And today you're in for a treat. We don't have our first speaker yet, but when he gets here, we'll be ready to go with him. But I'd like to introduce Kevin Chase, who's ESD Superintendent in Yakima at ESD 105 for a few more months. And he can welcome us and get us all pumped up. Thanks for being here.
Oh, good luck with that. Hi, everybody. I'm trying to figure out what Kyle Rydell's got going there. He's got small screen, big screen, walls, quite the show up there. I don't even see him. Oh, wait,
They're
I think I see
they
him
always
moving.
have their team. It's awesome.
Anyway, welcome everybody. I appreciate you joining us. Belen, nice to see you. I'm gonna start with this. Hopefully you guys will know this. I'm older than many of you, but I still remember this show and I think it's a good one. So we'll start with this. Wait a minute. Maybe you can see it, no? I think you get the point. What we're going to need from everybody is don't lose the faith, folks. Our kids need you to believe. Our kids need you to take a stand and work with them to create a schedule and create a life that more people need. And so today we're back with the hardcores. We're back on a big journey, by the way, a big journey. And I'm super excited about what we've been doing for the last couple of years about how we can help students and faculty and families find a more sane life out there. And also, I think we're gonna do way better for students as well, not just with the breaks, but with those intersessions planned at the right place are really important. And so thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for sticking with us. We're here to help and support you in any way you need help. And today we have some information that's going to be really cool about intersession work and some things that you have resources to that could help you. Plus, we also have some really sharp folks that are on this Zoom, and it's a small group. So today, don't be afraid to interrupt and say, hey, we have questions. We would like to talk about this. We would like to talk about that, because you have some of the premier folks in the country that know most about Balanced Calendar, and you've got a lot of folks that have implemented and worked on it. So today I'm super excited. I'm going to turn it back over. I think it's going back to you, Sharon, right? You've got something. So don't stop believing. I'm looking forward to today, and I think we're going to do some great work.
The great thing is these are also recorded. So if you have colleagues that were not able to attend, because we do know it's a very busy time of year, you come back from spring break and you're like, oh my God, I got to get all this done before the end of the year. So please remember that this is recorded and refer your friends to it as well. And I think I saw that our next presenter entered. Ish, are you there?
I'm here, yep.
Okay, awesome. We're going to start out with the current superintendent at Mount Vernon, who will be the ESD 189 superintendent next year. But knowing you, I know you're ending strong. I know that you are still all in at Mount Vernon. and they're thrilled that you're still there. So thank you for being kind enough to present today. And
Yes.
we're going to learn about how he has connected the outside and the community in with the work in Mount Vernon. And it was a very strategic way that I didn't hear in all of the districts we've been working in. So I think we all can learn from you. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll introduce my team or have my, so again, thank you for the opportunity to share information. With us, we also have Belle Vargas, our Public Information Officer, Armando Ruiz, who's been instrumental in helping facilitate a lot of our work. And then last but not least, Dan Berard, who just joined us as well. He's our Executive Director of Categorical Programs. So we've been the core, what we call the facilitation team. And then from there, we have our stakeholder committee that we're going to get into more details. Now, Sharon, do you have the PowerPoint that you're going to share, or would you like me to just pop it in? I don't remember how you wanted to do that.
Go ahead, and then you'll keep up with yourself. How's that? Unless you want us to, you tell us.
No, let me just
Okay,
get it here really quick.
sure. Thank you.
I was just coming back from a presentation, so I just logged in here. Belle, do you have that in front of you by any chance here? Sharon, if you have it, might be quicker to get that on there.
All right, let me pull it up.
Let me see here. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for doing that. Just all right, so I'll go ahead and get started. And I'll just yeah. So the first, yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. Again, this was been our calendar work for 23-24. Again, as we were looking at this, this is what we shared with our board the other day. That really the purpose is how we've worked with outside agencies to do our work. And we've been exploring this, as you know, this modified balance calendar. It's been spanned over multiple years. And this is where key to what Sharon was sharing, that we did collaborate with staff, students, and the community to identify options that really aligns with our district's goals. As we were going through this process, one of the things that we learned right away that even with what our stakeholder committee wanted and what I wanted and what we feel is a true balanced calendar, it's a really, really, really slow process. And so with that, I shifted my communication to share that really in the short term, we really want to promote a more student, staff, and family life balance. So that's really what our calendar this year and next year's calendar is going to do. Long term, we want to address equitable outcomes due to learning loss, and that's that summer slide. So again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So next slide, please. So again, the process, this is what we did in the 21-22 school year. And by the way, team, for my Mount Vernon team, please feel free to jump in anytime that you want to add to this. But we really began with this concept of the summer learning loss. And with summer learning loss, as you know, we had, again, David and Peter, that we did what I call Tea with Dr. V, is an opportunity for me to interview both David Hornak and Mr. Peterson. And it was just one of our whys of what we were exploring this. In the 21-22 school year, we also applied it and received the state grants. Thank you from the state for being able to do that, to continue to explore this idea. And so we started exploring this concept, which included, again, learning from other districts. We participated in these statewide summits, just like we're doing right now. And we did some school visits and book studies. So that was, again, the 21-22 school year. Next slide, please. It is on here. Sorry, I jumped the gun on the Tea with Dr. V. 2 years ago, the 22-23, we did form a stakeholder steering committee that really consisted of parents, labor partners, staff, students, and community members. I think that was one of the things that I think really worked well for us, that we were from the very beginning involved our community, especially our labor partners. And really the small but mighty group, we had anywhere from 20 to 30 people, actively about 15 that would always were there, but they did represent the community and did provide a lot of guidance to me. One of the things that we did, first of all, is that we developed a learning program, what we call the SFBC 101. A lot of these are hyperlinked, so eventually when you get these slides, it'll take you to our website. Part of that was this Tea with Dr. V that I talked about in our conversation with experts. With this first initial process, reaching out to our external stakeholders, which I'll also include our when we talk about from the district, just even to our staff, we had about 400 staff members that participated in that. That gave us a laundry list of so many questions. Naively, I thought, okay, I'll answer all these questions. But I learned quickly that no, I'm not gonna be able to answer those questions, but it did give us some indicators of where we can take this work. So it was really nice that we were able to look at themes and patterns that helped inform our work as we continue to move forward. Then we also had we invited interested staff to participate in statewide book studies. So we had a good number of staff that did that, I believe also in the 21-22 school year and the 22 and 23 school year. And then we created a shared informational video for staff and community. And that's different than this Tea with Dr. V. Those are still under our website, under resources. And we were just trying to just share as much information as we could about small versions of videos or little like 2-minute videos where staff were able to see those, or community and or parents. And again, those we stole from others, by the way. So it was nice to steal from each other, and it helps us to get to where we are today. Lastly, in the spring of the 23 school year, 22-23 school year, we did host 4 community forums. Those community forums, we had about 50 to 60 participants in each one. What I really, again, that's reaching out to our outside our walls to our community. I'd say one of the things that really came out of those was, I think there was a handful that came in questioning what we were doing, but I feel that they left asking questions, and really appropriate questions. So it was really nice. I mean, for example, they came up questioning like, why are we going to year-round school? And we were able to answer, no, not once have we said about going to year-round school. We've talked about, is there a way to redistribute the 180 days that might better meet the needs of our students and staff? So that was kind of our essential question as we continue to move that work forward. Next slide, please. So again, this year, again in the fall, we did introduce a modified balanced calendar idea to middle school and high school students. So before, we really hadn't reached out to our students, it was really our staff, our community, but we wanted to get our student voice and opinions. As you can see there, we had over 1,300 secondary students that provided feedback on 3 sample calendars. So we did provide 3 sample calendars that you'll see here in a little bit. Then after we received that input, we also reached out to staff again, and we provided them the same 3 calendar options. And we had about 240 staff that responded to that survey. By perspective, we have 1,000 employees. So, well over a quarter, I guess I'd say a quarter, or close to a quarter of our staff responded to the survey. Then we took all that data, and then we went back to our stakeholder steering committee that analyzed that feedback from staff and students. And then we also looked at staff and student absentee trends that helped us inform our ongoing work. So for example, when we looked at student absences, at one time we thought we would see significant absences on Fridays or Mondays. In our case, when we looked at the highest 10-day absences, they were actually on Wednesdays. And obviously it makes sense because that's when we had our early release days. So again, note to self, that was good to know, and it helped us to some level, but knew that wouldn't be as much critical data as we thought when we initially asked the question. Then once we created these 3 calendar options, Lisa Harpel, one of our high school teachers, a science teacher, she was instrumental in kind of helping us do a side-by-side column comparison. So that's different than the 3 calendar options, which you'll see here in a minute, because when we went back out to our community, we wanted to just give them 2 calendar options. And what we wanted to hear from them was basically, do you like a calendar that looks most similar to this year's calendar? Because that's what the 3 calendar options were showed most interest. Or B, are you interested in looking at a calendar that plays around with 5 more additional days, which means it spreads out the current calendar with 5 more days. So that means you either start earlier or you end later. So again, you'll see more data on that, but we had about 603 that responded to that survey and questionnaire. Lastly, the committee reviewed all the community input as well. And based on that information, we'll go to the next step. But that was the big step process that we did with our stakeholders and our community, our students and staff. So we went back to our staff a couple of times. So yeah, let's go to the next slide now. Another important note that I think this just is important. These are the members of our stakeholder steering committee from this year and last year. Again, just kind of tell you the name and title. So Dan Berard, Executive Director of Categorical Programs, going down the list. Delaney was our early learning context. Judith was a student. Del Rey was a middle school teacher. Freedom was our PSE 1 and paraeducator. Katie was one of our administrators. Kelly Johnson, our transportation supervisor. Carla was a student. Flora was our influential community leader. She does a program called Children of the Valley. Christy Nelson was our Mesa representative and one of our head secretaries. Berenice, Dan, was that our student or is that one of our parents? Sorry.
Student.
Thank you, Armando.
It's Armando, not Dan.
Yeah. Thank you, Armando, for that, for beating Dan to it. Sonia Olivera was one of our staff and parents. Basilia was one of our parents. Wendy Ragusa is one of our vice president on the board. Karen Rittenhouse is one of our parents and influential in our high cap, and just making sure that when we talk about student needs, we have to look at students across the spectrum. Armando, whose voice you just heard, is our dean of students and our facilitator. David, our director of equity and inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion director. Jordan Steve, our athletic director. Allison Peterson, our PSE 1 representative and paraeducator. Rosa was also PSE 1 and our migrant graduation specialist. Brent is a community member, parent, and a law enforcement. Cheryl Tremer was our MBEA president and elementary teacher. Myself, Kiara Wright was our MBEA vice president and also our high school staff. And then Jordan, a young elementary teacher, and Spencer Welch was our, we contracted with him, a retired employee from Bellevue School District, HR director for many years. And he's helped us over the years with some facilitation process. So sorry I spent a lot of time there, but I think it's important to kind of give you that full picture there. So, all right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, here's some of the data. So again, all these are hyperlinked, but we talked about that student focus at 101 staff survey, the 395 staff. When you click on the link, it takes you to that data information. Our community forum survey that were there, we did have quite a few staff, 89 of those responded, provided actual responses. When we were at the community forums, we actually had like group responses and conversations as well. Our student survey, our staff survey that we shared, and the community forum survey as well. I'm going to pause for a second because I know I'm kind of shotgunning a lot of information. But Dan, Armando, what I've shared, and Bill, is anything that I'm missing or that you'd like to add?
I don't know if I have anything to add at this moment, but I'm just curious to see if there's anybody who has questions at this point, or are we waiting for questions? Because I think, there's just as everybody has seen, there's a lot of work being done at all ends, and just from students helping us create videos to be able to share out with our community, our teachers, our staff, I should say, and all our students, but the community forums, just the amount of time and energy and commitment to be able to go from school to school and just I think that's one piece is like we looked at the community forums too, is like, and then we looked at like our map here in Mount Vernon, and it was critical to facilitate some of these meetings in different locations around town. So I think that's important to know as well.
Thank you, Armando. And and again, I know it's kind of going quick, but we can slow down as well. So for example, the last one here, community forum survey, the 603 respondents, we actually created what's it called, Screencastify, where we had a little bit of a video that we created, that I did an introduction. Then Armando kind of walked people through the comparison calendars, which I think we're going to go next. And And again, I think we'll continue, and please either put questions in the chat or hold on to them, and we'll try to answer them. So this is just a visual representation of the 3 calendars. The first one on the far left there is basically this year's calendar with the 24-25 calendar updated. So that's the one that really received still the top votes. But you can just see visually here, if you can see my cursor, if not, it's the little pie chart that shows that work. The next one is the 5-day, and again, we just added 5 more days, and we'll show you what those days where we placed them here in big picture item. And the last third option that we shared was playing with 10-day modified. So again, you can see these are measured steps, and my hope is that even though I'm transitioning, that the work will continue to see how can we continue to visit this and continue to balance the calendar. And even with our existing calendar, we need to talk about intersessions, which we'll talk about here shortly. And sorry, Dan, anything you want to add right now?
I'll share maybe a little bit at the end.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, next slide. So this was the survey results from our student survey. Again, just quick version. Calendar 1 was that one that looks this year's calendar that looks like last year's. Calendar 2 is playing with that 5 days, and then calendar 3 plays with the 10 days. You can see just visually that not by far, but the most popular choice was to stick with our current calendar. And again, remember that we already had our balanced calendar work has already had an indirect impact and influence because we had our labor partners as a part of this conversation. So it's kind of important to note that. What's cool to see that a lot of people were comfortable with, hey, let's explore maybe a 5-day, or they were comfortable with that being a second choice. Let's go to the next slide. This is staff, and it's really similar. You can see that a lot of staff still like a calendar that looked more like this year for next year for the 24-25. And then we're comfortable with the idea of if I had a second choice, the 5-day, we would be comfortable with that. And let's go to the next slide. Again, this is what we shared with, so those 2 first examples, let's go back 2 slides again, just to reiterate. So this was student information. Sorry, go forward. Yeah, so this is student survey information. Next slide was staff information. And the next one now, this is a community. So this is back to our community, because we didn't want to share actual calendars, because then there's going to be the assumption that, oh, they've already got a calendar in mind. No, we don't. What we have is just some ideas. So in short, because these were the 2 popular calendars, calendar A is a calendar that looks like this year's calendar, and calendar B plays with 5 years. So we wanted to have the same starting date, so August 28th as an example. And the reason we did that, because if we were to say, well, let's start after Labor Day, it would just confuse. So we wanted to try to compare, for lack of better description, apples to apples. So if we were to go with an August 28th starting date, the current calendar would have 2 days off in October and 2 days off in Thanksgiving. And that's what we currently have. And then 1 day off in March. Now, playing with 5 additional days, that means in October, we'd actually have 3 days. So 1 additional day in October, and that might be right after student conferences, for example. So we had and people like that already, especially at our elementary, that they had a good break after student conferences. The difference here would be Thanksgiving. We take the whole Thanksgiving week off. This represents Thursday and Friday off. This would be the whole week off. So I think that's what triggered some interest with a calendar B option, which might be something that could warrant further exploration in the future. And lastly, in March, we would have one of these is our PD day, but now we'd have a PD day and maybe another day, a 3-day weekend as an example. So again, I'll look here to the left. Again, there was 2/3 of our people that really said, okay, sample calendar A is what they really like. But there's a third that really said, hey, calendar B is, sure, let's talk about that. So let's go to the next slide. So this is the last one that I shared. And again, just as a reminder, this is all conversations that really we were purposeful of trying to make sure that we were outreaching our stakeholder groups, our parents, staff, students, and community as we did this work. And when I shared this information, I mean, we as a board, as a team, my recommendation was it was to get the head nod from the board, because the official calendar adoption is after it's been, I guess, vetted and through labor management with our labor partners. But sample calendar A is the recommendation to the board to move forward. So next steps that I shared with the board was, okay, this is, we need to collaborate with our key partners, which is our labor partners, human resources and administrators, to create the 24-25 school calendar. And on that note, we actually finally officially adopted it on April 10th. And so again, we didn't want to rush this, but that's where we are now. But future goals is to expand this concept by continuing to explore this. And really, some of those explorations could include a different start date in the future, multi-year calendar. We're already having conversations of looking at a 25-26 school year calendar, maybe this summer and early fall, so it's really getting it done. And lastly, and our intersessions. I think it's important that if we really are talking about moving that academic needle, we really have to look at intersessions. How do we continue to incorporate this? So again, starting. And when I started this, I'd say naively, I thought we'd get to a intercession sooner than later, but it's been a super slow process. But I think we're planting the seeds to move this work forward. I think that's the last one, Sharon. Let's see if the next slide is. I think if we're done, maybe we can stop sharing and then maybe just see what questions people might have, and then I'll turn it over to my team to see if there's anything that Dan and or Armando or Bell want to add. And I'm sorry for a lot of shotgunning out there, but want to get that started. So Dan?
Yeah, sure. So just a couple things. First of all, because of how this all unfolded, we did make a shift in our calendar by about a week. So we added a week of flexibility and time in our calendar, and it was a very kind of organic process how that happened. So the work really led us in a positive direction. But I want to share kind of 4 main takeaways from that I'm leaving from the last couple of years engaged in this. One is really important to do this with your bargaining groups, with your students and with your parents, with your community, not to them, because that we heard from some other districts that perhaps didn't engage with all of those groups, and their efforts really didn't lead anywhere productive. Don't be discouraged with people's initial reaction to this conversation. Don't overreact to how people react to having this conversation, because oftentimes the way that comes out when people first engage with this, thinking about a modified calendar, it comes across kind of negative. So don't overreact as a facilitator. And then the longer, what I found, or I think what we found, is the longer that we collaborated with our stakeholders, the more momentum this idea and this concept seemed to gain. And yes, it's a long process and we did a lot of collaboration, but over time, more and more people started to get on board with at least being open to the idea. And then the last one is just hopefully, these small steps over time will lead to some big changes. We've already modified our calendar by about a week, and hopefully we will continue this body of work and be able to make more modifications in the future.
Thanks, Dan. And I just want to add before I forget here, I can't stress enough how appreciative I am of our stakeholder committee, because they volunteered their time. They volunteered their time to do this. From the beginning, we knew that with, as you know, school district with limited resources, it's always going to be a challenge. So I really appreciate all the commitments of our stakeholder committees that were part of this process. So Armando or Bell, anything else you want to add? How about questions? Yeah, go ahead, Armando.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you both covered a lot of information. I'm just curious if people have questions for us that we can elaborate on.
Sure. So questions?
Anyone?
Do you plan? Oh,
Yeah, go
excuse
ahead.
me, Sharon. Do you plan on using any of the days off for any type of remediation for students? So you have no intercession type plans at this time, correct?
So I can take that one if you don't mind, Dr. Blanco. We would love to use days off and spring break and winter break and provide more supports during summer. But our current reality right now, like many of yours, is we're in a budget reduction process. So I don't know that that's going to be very likely this next year, but that is certainly part of our thinking around how we're budgeting for supports ongoing and how we're going to use the resources that we have and new resources that we can find. So it's a body of work that is a bit undone in part because of our budget situation, but I anticipate that we'll be doing more, not only support activities, but also enrichment activities for students during breaks, during 3-day weekends, and during summer.
And just to add to that, that's absolutely true. You know, we've had what we call our MVSD sustainability planning team, just with all things that we know we're facing financial challenges. And we really are using some equity questions to guide our work. And really, how do we even look at existing resources to better, maybe to help prioritize the services to better meet the needs of our kids. So again, yeah, big picture, I think that's going to be ongoing work, and we'd love to continue to be able to do that, Janet. So in the future, for sure. Other questions? I do want to point out to Kevin Chase that we do have sunshine on the west side as well. You know, it's hitting me right here. So not very often, but we do get it. So
Sharon, I did put it in the chat, a question directly to Dr. Vivanco.
Go ahead, Phyllis. Thank you.
I'm curious because I've been involved since the beginning and long before that in the notion of balancing a calendar, whether you use the term year-round or not. I'm wondering if at any point in your initial discussions, you looked at what the data has shown for a balanced calendar with timely supplementary learning, if the graph would ever emerge or the committees or surveys would see that next to your traditional calendar. I'm interested that sounds like you initially avoided talking about a year-round calendar, yet you use the terms modified and balanced. We use balanced and modified, which in actuality are just other terms for year-round. So did you look at the models of the most frequently used calendars?
Yeah, great question, Phyllis. And I'll start this and I'll check with our team as well. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that when we look at balanced calendar, that does come from year-round school research. And I think just conceptually, people right away were thinking year-round school, there's no way you're taking my summer away. And I kind of joked and not about the Northwest, as you probably know. We have only 20 days of sunshine the whole year. So, and that's usually in the summer. So, I mean, all joking aside, I think that is a reality, and it's something that we have to look at. And not only that, but air conditioning and do we have the structures in place? So we know that if we want to move this work forward, we have to start really small. So even though we know that the research does come from year-round education, I just wanted to be specific, and why we purposely, or I purposely called it student-focused balanced calendar, because this is about our students. The reason every one of us is here is because of our students. And that being said, we also know that we want students, staff, family, work-life balance. And I know in order to get to, call it 10 years from now or 15 years from now, an actual year-round school, if you want to call it that, or more of a balanced calendar, we have to start where we are now. So I'll stop there and see if Dan or Armando want to share. But we did look at some of that research when I interviewed David and Peter. That was part of our conversations as well. So Dan?
Yeah, so we looked at our own research on some of our past summer programs and outcomes and things like that. And you're not going to see huge academic gains by providing a 2 or 3 week summer program. That's not realistic. So I think one of the reasons that we really shifted towards more conversation around work-life balance is just the social emotional supports of our staff and our students. We're a high poverty district. If there are 2 parents in the household, they're both working. And if we have 8, 9, 10 weeks off in the summer, that's time where we're not touching those kids. And those kids are not only are they not receiving nutrition, but they're also not during the day around a loving, caring adult that can help them if things go off. So it's what's more important to me is just the health and having that touch point with kids more frequently, or having less long breaks. I think that's probably more important than what the data is going to tell us about improved reading or math scores.
Yeah. Thank you, Phyllis. And you asked about our supplementary learning opportunities play. That's absolutely part of the conversations. If we were not in this financial opportunity or challenge that we're facing, we talked about how can we really repurpose our supplemental resources and funds, maybe, you know, and we've already done some of that, by the way. So instead of traditional summer school for all students that we used to do in the past, we just focus on summer school for migrant students because it's a different specific pot of money. And we use our other funds to, was it for interventions, Dan? Is that what we, a few years ago, so again, we'd have conversations about how can we use our existing resources maybe to better meet the needs of our kids.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? I hope you picked up on how team focused Mount Vernon is. I met with them at the very beginning and they have the same team saying the same words. We, us, team, and you hear student, 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 student. And I applaud your work and I know it's going to get even deeper and the work will continue. So we've had several Mount Vernon people present and we're very appreciative of your willingness to share. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. I would shout out again to I know that you reached out to our labor president and they presented at one of the meetings. So that was great. That was awesome.
Because you're a team.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. If you have questions, I know that they're very accessible. They'd be happy to visit with you about any of this. They're
Absolutely.
very, very accessible. Also, the presentation is in the participants folder, so you can see the presentation and then you can get on those hyperlinks. So thank you again for sharing.